Hello, this talk is on the European superpower. It's part of the Seven Giants series, which is explaining the socio-economic and military powers of the great powers of the globe as they stand now. Recently, I've done quite a lot of vids on Europe, so some of this material may be familiar to you and some of it may be new. I've been reading a book by John McCormack, the European superpower, and the ISBN number is 1-4039-9846-9. Okay, you can see it. Check it out. It's a very good book. My economic materials come from my economics course though, and my own research. Now, why is Europe becoming an economic superpower, or it is an economic superpower? I've said often that Germany is the biggest exporter in the world of tangible goods, that is goods and goods for export, such as cars, white goods such as kitchens, also construction, many different things. But also that the UK, which is part of the Eurozone, if not part of the Euro itself, is the biggest financial exporter and importer, that is intangible goods, that is services, financial services such as insurance, stocks and shares, and these build in to the European community's economic power. You also have got industrial giants in their own right, such as Spain, Italy. You've seen a real Spanish resurgence in recent years. Countries that were poor, such as Ireland and Greece, and to a certain extent, southern Italy is still poor, but that's for internal friction between the north and the south of Italy. But the European Union has helped Ireland and Greece a great deal, and Spain, to become out of basically like second world or third world countries to become prosperous first world countries. Why is it that Europe seems to have the edge over America? And why is it that America has become the world's second largest economy? Um, the well, the euro is one major reason. 40% of all the world's currencies, these are 2004 figures, mind you, were held in euros, and probably it's much higher now. Also, European companies have taken on postmodern ways of working, based around team effort, and individuals can contribute to the team, and there's often interchangeable skills between management and workers. This is what the Japanese call kaizen. It's the ability of the worker to know the entire process of manufacture all the way down the line of the production line, so there cannot be strikes. It makes it much more difficult to have strikes. But also there's a social democratic side to that, not just a hard nosed capitalist side to it. You've got greater welfare benefits. The EU recognises economic rights, which the United States does not. It recognises that you can't be forced to work. To strike is a basic human right, and also that you're to choose your hours, flexible working hours. These are all directives that have come from the European Union. The Lisbon Treaty gives the right of petition, so that EU countries can leave the EU if they wish to, and also they can petition after 1 million votes. If they get 1 million votes from the citizenry, they can get a motion carried into legislation, and then the legislature in Brussels can then make it law. That's the EU Parliament. People, European companies want to work in Europe, and they want to work outside of Europe, and foreign people outside of the European Union want to work in European companies. They have better working methods than the United States, and that's where we're really competing. We're not just competing on, you know, quantity as a quality all of its own, is an old communist saying, but quality is I mean, if you Americans often will rather buy a German car than an American car. They'd rather buy a Rolls Royce if you've got the money than an American car. Doesn't that show something? And the Americans are very patriotic people. There's a lot about America that Europe emulates in its belief in human rights, civil rights. Um, but it is taking the balance between liberty and equality. That's where Europe, socially speaking, is really developing. More and more, the euro looks like it's going to become the world's reserve currency, although the IMF are working on a cyber currency which will act in a way similar to gold, but it won't be based on gold. It'll be gold-like certificates, but based on the internet. Now this will disenfranchise a lot of people who haven't got access to the internet in the third world, of course, but it will unite the northern countries at least. Um, the EU militarily is not as powerful as America, I must say that, but recently two major things have happened which were different to history, such as when the Bosnian conflicts happened, the Germans had to go overland with the bulk of who made up the bulk of the military force after the British, but the British had to be flown in by American aircraft with NATO, under the auspices of NATO. Now the European army at the moment is as big as the UK army. It's got more vehicles than the UK army, and it's got more helicopters than the UK army. It's also added the ability to have global transport by aircraft. These are major developments, and we've also had mid-air refueling since the 70s. So Europe is catching up militarily, and I think this should be welcomed by the United States, because the United States is a military hyperpower, but it can't be everywhere at all times. It shouldn't fear Europe, because Europe wants to work in partnership with the United States. We also want to have a security framework with Russia, and have Russia in a Security Council of Europe. Europe is also affecting the laws of Russia and the laws of the United States, where it's a legal superpower because its law is so revolutionary that other laws are having to follow it. Trade agreements are being followed. Trade treaties become the law of other countries when they sign on to them. So Europe's weight in the world is great. It's even affecting China, and it's even affecting Turkey, which is a very nationalist country. The Turks are having to reevaluate their moral codes and their laws to be able to become part of the European Union, and if they want to be a membership. So people have to go through this process before they even join the European Union. There's many steps. Why is the European Union a superpower? Well, it's the biggest economy in the world. It's the biggest exporter in the world of financial and tangible goods and services. It is power. It's power projecting already. We're already in a border war with Sudan, and the Swedish and French forces under the European army have already stopped border incursions by the Sudanese, and have taken retaliatory action. We're also in Afghanistan, and there is also room developing within NATO for a European independent force. But it's our postmodern power, our cultural, scientific, and economic power that is really, and our moral and ethical power that is really changing the world in its entirety. It's not just the Anglo-Saxon powers which are changing and being drawn towards Europe, but also the other non-European countries as well. And Europe is also trying to develop a Mediterranean and Middle Eastern Union, and it's trying to make Iran more democratic.